Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our live podcast on the leadership and becoming a great leader in your own capacity and in your own organization, in whatever capacity you're working in. With me in the show, I have my co host and my guest, Rob Kamranpur. Hey, Rob. Thank you for joining.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me again.
Hey, so much appreciated, Rob. Thank you for being here today. I know it's a weekend here, and I mean, you're doing something really, very, really beneficial for the community here, taking your time out and guiding us along the way on how we can become more efficient and effective in our roles and become an effective leader going forward, whether we are currently a leader or whether we want to be a leader in our future life. So I really appreciate whatever you're doing, and I'm truly following your work that you're doing on the platform yourself and your RK leadership. So it's a good job, and thank you for that.
Thank you very much. No, you're also doing a fantastic job in terms of, bringing people on and talking about leadership and spreading the knowledge and information. So kudos to you as well.
Thank you. Okay, so what we're gonna do today, we will just, as we were talking about last week, we'll keep talking about the challenges that have been faced to that people are facing while they are either going up the ladder or where they are currently in their role and in their own capacity. I think everybody in their own capacity is a leader and can be a leader. It's not a title. It's just like I guess sort of a mindset that you can develop in whatever role you are in. So we will keep continuing in that conversation. To the audience here, if you're listening this as a live podcast on LinkedIn or YouTube, Facebook, please make sure that you leave your comment and feedback here. Your feedback, your comments are really important for us. We learn from those on the and it gives us an opportunity to basically tweak and pivot on what is it that is interested for you guys. So please keep chiming in if you are live here. If you're not live and you're watching this as a recorded session, make sure that you leave your comments in the comments box below. Between me and Rob, we'll make sure that we address those comments, whether in a text format or we can bring those into our next episode. So I just wanted to make that comment here. So, Rob, last time when we were talking, I think we were talking about the thing that is of I guess significance in terms of people engagement. So being a leader, part of the challenge is, or being a, I would say not just a leader but being an impactful leader. Part of the challenge is that how do you keep your team engaged? The last time we were talking about some of the key points, which were like having a clear, concise communication and one-on-one communication. So I will take it from there, and we will build up our conversation on this comment. So I'll leave the floor to you, and then we can go back and forth and share our ideas and thoughts.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah, so engagement again, like I said previously as well, it's a very important part of leadership in any organization, in my opinion. I think engagement directly and indirectly impacts the various areas, including your bottom line, your clients and customers, their satisfaction, etc. So for me, it was always important to create that engaging environment. And once you do that, you let your team kind of take over, and they build on every other aspect of what needs to be done accordingly. And it's having those clear and concise goals for them. That clear communication is very important. The consistent communication with them is important. Feedback is always, you have to be providing feedback to your team on a regular basis. Don't just wait until the end of the year for that performance appraisal and that ticky box for you to say, hey, I talked to my team and I ask all these generic questions of them. Actually be there to care and provide them with timely and specific feedback in accordance to what they're doing. Just creating that safe environment for people to be able to thrive in, and not be afraid to be reprimanded for mistakes that they make, and that's how you also create innovation from it. So those are just some of the things that we can talk about.
Yeah, all great points, Rob. I think all the things that you mentioned are essential for the team engagement. One of the challenges that I see these days, the leadership or the leaders are facing is uh, is the remote work environment, right? So although remote work environment has its own benefits, it has its own I would call it plus points, but at the same time, I guess keeping all the team, all those team members that are kind of spread apart in different parts of maybe different parts of the province or different parts of the world, depending on how big your team is. Now, keeping all those different people engaged into the common vision, into the common goals, into the common mission, I think that's a great challenge that the leaders are facing these days. Now, to your point, we can do what we can do, meaning that we can have a clear, concise communication, consistent communication. Uh, we can make sure that we have one-on-one meetings, we have a cadence of meetings set up, we follow and track the performances, oh, not once every year, but maybe at least at minimum once every quarter, or even better, once every month, if that is a possibility. But what else would you recommend um, for a remote work environment? Like these days, I guess most of the organizations have the team that are spread across the province, the country, or globally.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up. Again, for me, it's sure, you've got people sitting outside your office, or you got people, uh, you know, hundreds of miles away. It doesn't matter. The concept still applies everywhere. So if you've got a team member that's working remotely, how many times are you actually checking up on that member to see how they're doing, to just ask them how they are, and discuss other things other than work with them, because it's checking up on them, right? Checking up not in terms of micromanaging, but hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What can I do for you? Is there something you need help with? That kind of follow up. And again, I think that gets missed because we get bogged down with our own meetings and our own agenda, and the million things that we have to do, that we lose track, because it's always easier to have people outside your office that you can walk over to and talk to. But when you have people that are working remotely, the same concept applies. It's just, pick up the phone, even if you don't want to, you know, set up a meeting with them to talk to them. But you can always pick up the phone, text them, just any kind of interaction would help. And also, from a team perspective, bring everyone in as a team. And my rule is your camera has to be on, because that's how people connect. It's faceless. Seeing somebody faceless doesn't do much, especially for somebody like myself.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I think to your point, it's this global platform, this global digital platform where we all can connect remotely. Having a camera on is, I guess, it's significantly important for the team members to get connected. Although you don't get that physical, I guess, presence, which in my opinion is a key. But at the same time, to overcome this challenge, because we know that it's really hard for the organizations and for the members, for the team members to travel for the meetings every quarter or every month. So it's great to have this opportunity to connect virtually, and have utilize the technology, because this is what technology is meant for. So just utilize it, get connected. uh, what would you recommend to the team members? Now we're talking about the leaders here, but in terms of, if you are part of that team, right? You're part of that organization.
Mm.
You yourself are not a leader, but as I said earlier in the opening of the conversation, we are all leaders, right? It depends on the mindset. So if you're on the team and for some reason your leader is busy, or he or she's traveling, and they don't have enough time to have a cadence of meeting monthly or quarterly, then as a team member sometimes you kind of feel disconnected, or you may feel like left alone, right? What would you recommend in that case to a team
Yeah.
member, to so that he or she can feel connected to the team, or and also he or she can sort of make themselves engaged into the overall organization?
Yeah, this is very simple for me. You don't need a title to be a leader. All I say is act like a leader. Anybody can act like a leader. You can pick up the phone just as you expect a leader to call other people. You pick up the phone, or you set up a meeting with your colleagues to see how they're doing, what you can help them with, what they're struggling with. Ask them what projects they're working on, and uh, share knowledge with them. Again, there's no barriers in place that's preventing you from talking to each other. And I see a lot of that is, again, a lot of these issues comes down to communication, lack of communication, miscommunication. If we say we're all part of the team, then we all have to support each other in every single aspect. Reach out to each other, see how your teammates are doing. You want to call your manager, pick up the phone and call your manager. Ask them how they're doing. It's not a one communication is not one way. It's bi-directional. You got to remember that. And if you really understand that concept, it's fairly simple to just reach out to people. Hey, why don't we get on a Zoom call and have coffee together? Be creative. You don't have
Fair
to
enough.
see each other face to face, but you can
Yeah,
still see each other face to face.
that's a great point. Having a, I never thought about. I mean, I never thought about that. The point that you're bringing is, we can still have a coffee together while we are remote, right? So just like as we're talking here virtually in a
Mm.
studio format, we can still have a coffee together or a drink together, and we can have that sort of connection even if we are not sitting in one place. So that's a great point. So just moving forward and taking on the same token, talking on the same token, what I've seen in the industry, um, I think I'm just taking, I would call this as a natural thing perhaps, and maybe you can correct me if I'm just taking it to that giving it that angle. But I guess the point I'm making here is that naturally, uh, people have that, not everybody, but I guess I would say majority of the people have the tendency to be hesitant in communication. What I'm trying to say here is that people have tendency or hesitancy to take a step forward and initiate a conversation. So, for example, I will just give you an example here. If you are going into a meeting room, right, where you have, let's say, a bunch of strangers sitting, you
Mhm.
haven't met them before. You might have seen the similar scenarios in a larger meeting groups where people come together, but they are all from perhaps they're all meeting for the first time. Uh, and you might have noticed that natural hesitancy of people not taking a step forward to initiate the conversation. I would call that as a normal thing. Everybody has the same thing, but to overcome that situation, I guess we all need to, just to your point, we all need to act like leaders and take a step forward and just break the ice. Take a step forward, break the ice, introduce yourself, and start the conversation, right? Is that the right approach, or you would think otherwise?
Yep. Uh,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
you're bang on, because again, what all of us what all of us deal with as human beings is fear. The fear of in our mind, and there's various aspects of fear that we feel. And the fear of being judged. When you go into a meeting, I don't want to sound stupid. What am I going to say? You know, what am I going to say that's going to sound intelligent, etc., etc. So we have all these scenarios running in our head. head, and that's why we stay quiet most of the time. And you have to fight that fear with what we call courage. So you have to have
Mhm.
the courage to come out, just be authentic, be yourself, say, talk about something normal, talk about something in everyone's life. Just
Right.
ask people how they're doing. That's how you break the ice. But having the courage to start that conversation will help you realize that, hey, this is easier than I thought. It's all about being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. Yeah, comfortable with being uncomfortable. Excellent, excellent point here. So I'm just taking note here. That's great. I would just move on, Rob. So the next thing I wanted to talk here on this podcast was about the people uh, just becoming. I think we did touch base on this one last time, but just due to the time limitation, we couldn't build up on this one. So the next agenda point here is about the new team members. Now, you are hiring a new person, you go
Mhm.
through all the hiring process, you pick the right person for your team. Now that person comes on board, and they start working in your organization. Being a leader, what are the first, what are the first few things that you would recommend uh, from a leadership perspective, so that you give a warm environment to that new person joining the team. You feel them comfortable, you feel them like home, you feel them being protected. What are the few recommendation that you would make as a leader for that situation?
Sure. Again, it's like you said, it's making people feel welcome to the environment. It's a new environment, new culture. They're not accustomed to it, so you can't just have them sit at a desk and not attend to them. So one of the key things is making sure that you introduce them to everybody on the team, right? If you've got a large team, you could set somebody up to spend the day or two or whatever with them. Now, some of the horror stories I've heard is um, another great thing to do is you as a leader, take them out for coffee, for lunch, just get to know them on a personal level, right? Connect with them so they feel comfortable that that ice melts. I've heard horror stories where managers don't attend to their hires. They don't talk to them even 6 months after they've been hired, and that to me, what impression are you leaving on that new employee when your boss doesn't
Absolutely.
give a crap about you? How would you feel about that, right? So it's important to make people feel at home, and again, that works in the engagement piece.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rob. You're right. It's, not everybody is lucky enough to have a good leader, or you use the word manager. What happens is, if you have a crappy, I call it manager, they're not even they're not even coming to say welcome to you. They're not coming even to talk to you in the first whatever, 3 to 6 months. You really feel discouraged and disconnected. There's no motivation for the employee to work there. I mean, money is of course a thing that people work for, but I guess it's not just the money. The self-respect, the environment, the interaction with the leadership, all those things counts. And if you don't provide, safer environment, a respectful environment for a team member, you're you're very likely to lose that member very soon. As long as soon as they find another good opportunity, they're gonna leave your firm right away. So I think there's a
For
saying
sure.
that people don't leave the organizations, but they leave their bosses, right?
Yeah, and I always hear that, but what I always add to that is they leave their bosses, but it's also the culture of the organization, because the culture creates those bosses, right?
Right,
And if you
right.
allow those bosses to do what they're doing, then you've created that culture now. So do they really leave just the boss, or are they leaving the organization and the culture that's created that boss? So for me, it goes a little bit beyond just the boss, right? Because you get what you tolerate. And if you're tolerating that kind of behavior from your management, or whatever you want to call them, that's what you're going to get. And a lot of it comes down to, in my opinion, to ego. Just because you've got a title, you got a fancy title, or you think you're above somebody else, you're
Right.
really not. And you have to bring yourself sometimes to their level to say, hey, you know what, this person is just a person just like you. And if you walked in somewhere new, or if you think about when you were in their shoes, how would you feel if people didn't greet you, or just kicked you in the corner and never talked to you because they had a title? So I always say, treat people with respect and dignity, because remember that you were in their shoes one day.
That's a great point. I think the point that you made to the culture is is significant, and developing a safe culture where everybody is respected, everybody is equal, everybody is treated equally, no matter what their title is. I think it's really important for us when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think all the larger corporation or companies are talking about and using these words DEI everywhere, but how much they implement it, it's still, I guess, a question mark, right? So on that note, I think the point that you made earlier about the culture is, how would you, or what would you recommend to the corporations or organization watching this podcast? What would you recommend to them? How can they make sure that the leaders that they're making, or the people they call them as leaders, are accountable? The
Mhm.
people are accountable for their actions, for their statements, for their treatment, the way they treat their team members. What would you recommend to these organizations, and how can they take some kind of accountability to the leaders, they call them?
Sure, that's a great point. And I've had this conversation recently with certain people I'm coaching in a large organization, and I did have a chat with their executive. Is, first of all, you as an executive are responsible for all your leaders. So
Hmm.
ultimately, the CEO of the company, or whatever executive level you're at, you're also accountable for all your leaders. So you can't say, well, this guy's not doing well, this guy's not doing well, this person isn't fulfilling their role as a leader. What are you doing about it? What have you done about it? How are you coaching them? How are you ensuring that they're developing in their role? So one of the things that, in my opinion, is you have to have a pulse on, you have to have your finger on the pulse in terms of who your leaders are, what they're doing. And one of the things that I recommended to this executive is, hey, the 360 feedback system, or just engagement surveys, to me are so important, because what it, and especially the 360, where the 360 helps you, understand where your leaders are at, where your managers, supervisors, anybody that's got people underneath them, they're being assessed by their team. And now you can understand where the pain points are, where the gaps are, where the strengths are. So you build on the strengths, and you help them with the opportunities. And again, you as an executive also have to spend time and train and focus on developing your leaders. It's an ongoing thing. Nobody is born into that role. It takes a lot of work and effort. And sometimes it's not even their fault, because they just don't know what to start with. They don't even know where to begin with. They don't know what to do about a certain situation. And they're just, sometimes it's just guesswork, or it's just what they do because it's their character. And they've got to get that feedback to say, hey, this is right, or this is wrong, and this is the way you should be doing it. Why don't you try this? It's that coaching that doesn't happen in these organizations.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. The thing that is not happening too frequently, and there's no focus given to it, is the coaching, the mentorship for the leaders. So what happens is, naturally people get promoted, they go up the ladder, they become they get a title of the leader or people leader or manager or whatever, but now they start leading the teams, and they have not been trained for that, so they still have that call it mindset not yet developed to lead the teams. And then if you don't pay attention to such characters or such individuals, then gradually, it affects the entire culture of the organization. Now, what I'm going to do here is, just in the interest of time, we're talking about from the leadership perspective, but at the same time, it's important for us to kind of go back and forth and flip both sides of sit on both sides of the table. So we're talking about the leaders, but what if you're on a team? You're reporting to a leader, and everybody in some capacity, we are all reporting into some kind of leaders or board of directors or whatnot. But what happens is you are on a team and you feel like you're reporting into a person who is not respecting you, or or you feel like you're not being respected the way you wanted to. So, or your work is not being recognized, it's not being appreciated. You're putting extra hours to make sure that your projects are completed, but the credit is not given to you. In that situation, now you know that you can't talk to your leader because that person is, you already know, is not appreciating you, not encouraging you, not giving you the attention that you want to have. In that situation, what would you recommend? What this person could do? Should this person just go to HR, or just go one step above the leader, or what would you recommend? Because again, I guess we all go through similar situation in our careers.
Yeah, again, great point. So here's the way I look at things. When you say, I already know that that manager doesn't care, or, thinks differently, do not make that assumption. Actually have that conversation. Have a sit down conversation. And like I always say, at the beginning of every relationship, you got to put your expectations on the table. Both you as a leader and you as a teammate, you have to set those expectations. Hey, this is what I want. This is what I, feel strong about. This is what I need, etc., etc. So it's that bi-directional conversation and communication you're having. Now you come to a point where you've already done whatever you can, and your manager is not listening to you. So you have what's called an MOR, or manager once removed, and that's their manager. You
Mhm.
have every right to go and have a conversation, but make sure before that you have that conversation, you've done your due diligence and tried everything else. Because in order for you to go have a sit down with them, you're going to look really bad if you're just escalating things without having tried things yourself to resolve the issue. Because remember, at the end of the day, we're grown ass adults in the workplace. So if we can't talk to each other and resolve our problems like two adults, then there's something wrong with that culture. Again, there's something wrong with that environment. And those things need to be addressed at the root. So I think, again, escalating things, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with it. If you're not being heard, escalate it. And if you're still not being heard, and you feel like you're in a toxic environment, you're not a tree. Move. You know, have that value for yourself to say, hey, I don't belong here, maybe, right? I want to go somewhere where I am going to be valued. You can't, sometimes having too much expectations of something, and you get set up for disappointment, unfortunately. So you have to take action yourself. You have to be courageous to say, hey, this is what I want in life. And if you're not meeting that, you just got to walk away and find something else.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Truly appreciate that. What I'm gonna do, we'll just wrap it up. We are almost at the end of the podcast. So all those who just listen to all, these important insights of what you can do if you're a leader, if you're on a team, if you're running into different situations, how you'll handle that. So these are all great insights. Keep notes of all these things, because there are times that we all go through similar situation. If you have any comments, any feedback, please feel free to leave in the comment section below. For both myself and Rob, we'll make sure that we address those in a timely fashion. Rob, any last parting comments?
No, I appreciate everyone's time and everyone tuning in to listen. And if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, please feel free, leave your comments, ask your questions, and we'll definitely get back to you. Thanks again, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.